Welcome back to the Caffeinated Church Conference. There are many communications vehicles in which your church can engage your members and your community. In this video, we're going to touch on what I'd like to consider the trinity of church communications: website, e-newsletters, and social media. If you're going to put all of your eggs in a basket, let's focus on these three. There's plenty of other communications vehicles we can add down the road, but first, let's get these three areas up and running smoothly. Later, we'll talk about bulletins, verbal announcements, brochures, digital signage, postcards and mailers, bulletin boards, building signage, photos and videos, audio and podcasts, press releases, posters and banners, and advertisements. The goal of the Caffeinated Church Conference is not to make you feel overwhelmed by all the things you could be doing. The goal is to make you aware of all these possibilities and then let you choose as a church on what you're going to do well, and give yourselves permission to not do other things until you're doing a few of these things really well. Don't spread yourselves too thin. Do the things that you have capacity to do, and do what is sustainable long term. Now let's talk about brand. Your brand is not just your logo. Your logo is a tangible aspect of your brand, certainly, but your brand is much more robust than that. Your brand includes intangibles such as your voice or your tone. In the voice of your church, it's important to remember how you use pronouns such as us, we, they, and them, and how they can be received as being exclusive. The use of acronyms are unclear and exclusive to those not in the know or familiar with your church and its ministries. Your brand is also influenced by your level of excellence in how you communicate, mistakes, typos, and your quality of writing. So sweat the small stuff. It really matters. Your brand includes your self-image as well as the image that's projected onto it by a familiar or unfamiliar world. It's not only who you say you are, but also who the world says you are. It's who your neighbors say you are. It's who your city council says you are. It's who other churches say you are. It's who that person who received your invitational postcard in the mail or saw an Easter banner on the side of your church says you are. So let's talk about some examples of branding that we're all familiar with. Starbucks, for example. What do you think of when you think of Starbucks? You think of the logo, green and white mermaid, pricey coffee, strange names for the size of your order, tall, grande, venti. You think of the green and black aprons that the employees wear, maybe the green straws. You think of your favorite order and how you can customize your order. You know there's 80,000 drink combinations? You think of the cost of your order. It's not cheap. You might think of the initiative of Starbucks to hire 10,000 refugees. You might think of how they treat their employees, their benefits, or their values that they project. You might think of the red cup controversy a few years ago leading up to Christmas. You may think of the name and face of your local barista who knows your name and order without you even having to ask. How about McDonald's? What do you think of? Golden arches, golden fries, Happy Meals, the playground for the kids, Ronald McDonald, dollar menu, red and yellow McCafe, a consistent menu no matter where you order. I think of the McRib because it's a guilty pleasure. What else do you think of when you think of McDonald's? Maybe you think of their initiative in giving back to the world, the Ronald McDonald House. Maybe you think of the unique architecture of their restaurants. The brand of McDonald's includes what you might say to a friend who has never been to one. You might describe the food or what you like or don't like. You might describe the atmosphere of one. You might describe the bathrooms even. It all matters. It's all part of the brand. As you can see, there are many facets of a brand of a business. There's also many facets of your brand in similar ways for your church. I want to tell you a quick story about a church that I visited with my family for the first time. I was in Marco Island, Florida, where my parents live, and they said, "Do you want to go to your church tomorrow?" They thought it'd be a neat experience to visit an Episcopal church, and they knew of one in their small community from driving by it many times. I said sure and jumped online to check out the information about the church. I pulled up the website and immediately was struck by a welcome message on the home page. I'll read it for you here in a minute, but if you want to follow along, you can visit the church at stmarksmarco.org. I believe that the message isn't unique to their church, but rather borrowed, either in large or in part, but edited to include their own message and context. Regardless, it struck me as being really welcoming, a true definition of what welcome is for their church, and a message of invitation. So go ahead and follow along as I read. We extend a special welcome to those who are single, married, divorced, gay, bisexual, transgender, straight, filthy rich, or dirt poor. We extend a special welcome to those who are crying newborns, skinny as a rake, or could afford to lose a few pounds. We welcome you if you can sing like Pavarotti, or are like our rector, who can't carry a tune in a bucket. You're welcome here if you're just browsing, just woke up, or just got out of prison. We don't care if you are more Christian than the Archbishop of Canterbury or haven't been to church since little Johnny's baptism. We extend a special welcome to those who are over 60 but not grown up yet, and to teenagers who are growing up too fast. We welcome keep fit moms, football dads, starving artists, tree huggers, latte sippers, vegetarians, junk food eaters. We welcome those who are in recovery or still addicted. We welcome you if you're having problems or down in the dumps or you just don't like organized religion. We've been there too. If you blew all your money on the horses, you're welcome here. We offer a welcome to those who think the world is flat, work too hard, don't work, can't spell, because your family's in town and wanted to go to church. We welcome you to a place where you don't have to be afraid. We welcome those who are inked, pierced, or both. We offer a special welcome to those who could use a prayer right now, had religion shoved down your throat as a kid, or got lost coming over the bridge and wound up here by mistake. We welcome tourists, seekers, and doubters, bleeding hearts, and you, because we are all children of one Father. When I read this message on the church's website, it ended with, "I love you, Kyle." I immediately felt like there was at least one person I now knew, and we were on the first name basis. We were eye to eye. I felt like we had rapport with one another. It wasn't the Reverend so-and-so. It was just simple and kind, and not obligatory. I had to find out more. I was excited about visiting this church. So I'm sure you're asking yourselves the question, yeah, they have a nice welcome message on their website, but did they actually live up to that promise of radical welcome? Well, when we arrived at the church, we were greeted as we got out of the car. And we were greeted on the sidewalk, and we were greeted again at the door. We looked around, and the place was buzzing. There were people catching up in the hallways, people going to and from classrooms, and people finding their seats for the service. I noticed that in the smaller retirement town of Marco Island, Florida, this church was incredibly diverse. Old and young, dressy and casual. There were all kinds of economic status. Married, divorced, single, big and small, and I bet even both conservative and liberal. We were running a bit late and the service was already so packed that we had to sit in 2 different rows. As a communications person, I was immediately involved in looking through the bulletin and seeing what the life of the parish was like, and their ministries, events, ways in which they're involved in the community, etc. The music started and I reached for the hymnal but accidentally grabbed the Book of Common Prayer. Now, the woman sitting next to me immediately scooted over to me and said, "You must be new here." She then explained that I could put that book away, and she grabbed the other one and even flipped to the right page for me. Then throughout the service, she walked me through everything. She explained communion and how to go up, and if I wanted to receive, and what to do if I wanted to receive a blessing instead. She led me of when to sit and when to stand, the gymnastics of being an Episcopalian. I wish I remembered her name because she was so welcoming. She embodied that welcome statement on the front page of the church's website. At the end of the service, she asked me where we were visiting from and what we do for work. And that's when I had to sheepishly admit that I worked for the Episcopal Church, and I was just distracted at the beginning of the service. So, welcome, true hospitality. If I lived in that community, I wouldn't be able to help myself but come back to that church week after week from that point. She was a concierge of sorts to the kingdom of God. Back to Brand. That was a church experience where that church will always stick in my mind. That woman who guided me through the service is a part of that church's brand. The 3 points of welcome that I received before I even reached the door are a part of that church's brand. The welcome message that engaged me from the very beginning is part of the church's brand. The personal connection I felt with the rector is part of the church's brand too. The architecture, the bulletin, the kids running around and standing in the pews, the website, the preaching, the invitation to return and partake in the life and ministry of the church, they're all part of that church's brand. What people say in the community about the church, the ways that they're engaged in their community and known by that work and service, again, is a part of the church's brand. What is your brand as a church? What do you do as a church? Who else does what you do? Who do you serve? What would happen if your church doubled in size over the next 5 years? What would that look like? How do you see your church? What's the personality of your church? How do you want the community to see you? Please take the next 10 minutes and choose 2 of the 3 questions on your branding worksheet to discuss in small groups. I think it's a really unique exercise on how to engage and discover who you might be. I especially like question number 5 in the how do we see our church? Identify 3 famous people or celebrities that have personalities that reflect your church values or personality. Are you Bono or are you Kanye? Are you Eeyore or Tigger? Are you Elton John or are you Mike Pence? Look through these questions. Discover who you are. Consider what personality you might be outside of this realm.